Need a new car? The Society of St. Vincent de Paul is hosting a car raffle fundraiser to raise money for their Madison food pantry, pharmacy, micro-lending program, and other services that help local families. That's right, you can buy tickets now for a chance to win one of 5 brand new vehicles. They've got 2026 Hondas, Nissans, and one Mazda. Tickets are $100 each and only 5,000 will be sold. Find more details on the cars and buy tickets at svdpmadison.org/raffle. Make Music Madison returns on Sunday, June 21st. Between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., Madison will become a stage as coffee shops, restaurants, front porches, and businesses across the city fill with live music. Make Music Madison is a free citywide celebration of music held annually on the summer solstice. Part of the larger Make Music Day, which occurs in over 1,000 cities across the globe, Madison boasts the largest chapter in the U.S. with hundreds of performances and events. Go plot your route today at makemusicmadison.org. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, the Center for Black Excellence in Culture on Madison's South Side is open! This is a multi-million-dollar effort and years in the making, and the construction vision has been realized. So what happens now? Here with me to answer that question is founder of the center, Reverend Dr. Alex G. Alex G., welcome back to the podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be back again. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure and honor to have you. And we are in this space right now, which is the dream.
Yes.
We're recording at the center.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we had our grand opening about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Not sure if my feet have touched the ground yet. We had more people than we could imagine. We had 1,500 people come through this space. There's like a 2-hour line down the block past Burger King. And I'm deeply, deeply touched that the community wanted to get in and to see what this space was all about. So I feel like whatever the new normal is, I feel like I'm getting a little bit closer to it right now.
Yeah, I mean, that event, I just need us to wax poetic on it for a little bit because I was there with our producer, Jade Isiri Ramos, and we were in that line around the block and the excitement.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I think I parked on a grassy area. There were so many people here, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. But it was so invigorating and such a testament to the fact that we need this. We needed something like this. And 1,500 people, I was going to ask, how many people came through? Because it was a marvel, and everyone, there were just so many community leaders. There were folks from Milwaukee. There were people from all over the state. I bet probably all over the country, for what it's worth. I was having the time of my life, and I mean, my own experience, I was standing by the bar. The people were dancing, everyone was down there. But I heard someone say that this moment, they were elated. And I thought that really captured it well.
I think that's a great capture. I feel that the community, really the state, needed a win. Because so much is going on in the world right now. You just stop and everyone can easily go to what's negative. I think people wanted a chance to step out of that environment and just to remember, being together with each other can be fun. And it was cross-cultural and cross-class and elected officials. I saw the chief of police standing in line. But then I saw my 4th grade language arts teacher, my 3rd grade homeroom teacher, my 7th grade Spanish teacher. In this space, my world just seemed to come together. It was so full circle. But I feel that people wanted to be in a space where we're not focusing on fixing an issue. We're just being people that are trying to get along together and enjoy each other's company. And I felt that we hit that, mission accomplished. That day had to be one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah. It was so spiritually connected.
Yes.
It really was. And families, all generations were here and smiling and listening to the beats and taking in the Black aesthetic, the decor. It was so powerful. And I do want to hear, what have you heard so far from other folks from the community about their experience and what they think of the space?
I've been hearing everything from Black influencers saying, I feel proud to be in Madison in this space. To others who have said, well, this doesn't feel like Madison or even Milwaukee. This feels DC, like the aesthetic, the level of Black excellence. I heard people from the Black community talk about how long we waited for this, but also elected officials cornered me and were crying, like sincere tears saying, what you've given this community, what you've done for this community. And then I think people said, we don't know what we expected, but it wasn't this. I think the resounding message was we didn't know what to expect, but space that could so pointedly strengthen the Black community, promote Black culture, give us a sense of pride and belonging, but also see that there are spaces where the whole community to come together and we can celebrate in our space as well, because we need space to heal, connect, reconnect, to take a phrase from General Mitchell Airport in Milwaukee, to recombobulate. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
We do need space for that. But then there's this deep sense from the community that we want our non-Black friends to see us in spaces of Black excellence. So I feel people have been trying to put it in a box. What is this going to be? Is it a museum? Is it a cultural center? Is it a playhouse? Is it a bar? Is it a music hall? I mean, it's really like all the above. And so I just felt that people appreciated that we thought through so many aspects of this. And that was apparent that we'd done our homework when they came in.
You blew people's minds, me included, our producer, and, something standing out to me after we were like getting our head back on our shoulders and recombobulated.
Yes.
Because I think I was smiling ear to ear for hours, and it felt like it was like 15 minutes, even though I was there for hours. Like, it was so much joy and emotionality. But yeah, our producer, Jade, afterwards, she said, it was such a joy to see you, Bianca, in this space with other Black leaders.
Yes.
And I felt that too. Like, I didn't even realize like how many folks were really deeply connected with and how much community I have. And I left feeling like also more inspired, invigorated to live in Madison, that there's a space for us to gather and it's quality. And, I know when we last talked, when it was ideation stages or early construction,
Sure.
We talked Wakanda, Party on 10.
That's right.
This is for the diaspora. Like, you had to go big for the international
Yes.
community, and the idea of like bringing dignitaries here. This is a dignified place.
Thank you so much. You summed up what we wanted people to feel. And so I'm so glad you captured it that way. And as much as we had hoped and planned to have people walk through and articulate what you just did, it helped us to realize we can pull that off. So, we came with a physical building and the hopes and dreams of the energy of our design. And we hope that by doing that, we'd create a sense of sacredness in this space that would bring joy and even present itself in a greater sense of healthiness for the Black community. But when people came through and said, I would come back to this, I would drive for this. Our radio personality in Milwaukee, Sherwin Hughes, said in his program that he would have flown to DC to have the experience. He drove here because he didn't believe that Madison could do something that Milwaukee hadn't. So he came to see what's going on. Well, his segment was so funny. He said, well, so when I drove up, because he was recounting it for people, he said, I saw this long line down to Burger King and I thought, are the Black people in Madison so backwards and so void of culture that they're lining up to get a Burger King? Like this is they're really lining up to get a Whopper. And then he said, wait a minute, this is the line for the center. And then he went into what it was and all of this stuff. So it was a great interview, but it was funny that when he first saw the line, he just assumed Black people wanted a Whopper and wanted to be king for day. And to not only meet but surpass people's expectations was really rewarding.
I was shocked at the line. Like, I knew it was big, but it hit you in the face when you showed up and you're like, oh, this line is 45 minutes long and it's Party on 10. Like, it was so incredible. And we know what this space looks
Sure.
like, but for folks who didn't make it to the opening, I'm sure they saw photos, but can you talk about this space a little bit more, like describe what's here, the kinds of rooms and decor and things folks will see when they walk in and explore?
Sure. The first thing I will say is the design of this space really started several years ago after I had kicked off a Justified Anger initiative. And maybe we can put a link to that article that I wrote years ago. but it caused me or allowed me to have conversations with over 700 Black folks in the community over the past decade. What would home feel like to you? We know that Black people are leaving Madison in record numbers, but also Black people are leaving the North for the South in unprecedented numbers. We've never had that backwards migration in U.S. history like we do right now. And so I like to study trends and ask people why this is happening. The community spoke into the need for this space and then the space itself. And then we were fortunate enough to find a Black architect. Only 3% of architects are Black in the U.S. And so we found a gentleman named Rafiq Assad from JLA, and he was brilliant. He showed up at like one of our first planning sessions. He was in the process of being hired by JLA, but we didn't know this. So after they agreed to be our architect, then we had like maybe our second meeting, and Rafiq showed up. And I didn't know who he was. Like, who's this new guy? Who's this, this big guy with dreads? Like what's going on here? And we found out that he was going to be our lead architect. So I just want to say the Black community spoke into the spaces and what we need. So when you come in, you find a place that is aesthetically appealing. It's beautiful. It's 37,000 square feet. Rafiq and his team designed it beautifully because we're on a hill. There's the height of the hill, but then it also slopes backwards. So to build into that space took some real thought. And so we could have the auditorium, be at a level where you could walk out, but then the top level have a patio where you could look, over the Beltline or over our local highway. So people will find gathering space because 91% of the Black people who spoke into this said we need space to just gather. So lots of spaces and nooks to sit. Because the community said in order to belong, we need a place to tell our story. We have an auditorium, which I'm told is the only Black-owned theater in the state of Wisconsin. And if it's not the only, it's the largest and the newest. But then we have a small one for experimental theater that could be used for dinner theater or just gathering and meeting spaces. Because many African Americans, and because we're talking about the diaspora, I'll say the Black community will travel to the Twin Cities to see a Black play at Penumbra, or to Chicago or Milwaukee. I went to Beloit to see a nationally recognized Black comic from Comic View because he would come to Beloit, but not Madison. So we built space for performances, for comics, for lecturers, for people to get together and meet. But we also built in 2 lounges because people just want to come together and enjoy a drink together or a dance or a band or a jazz combo. We have a children's library. We have a senior space, and they're next door to each other because we want that intergenerational play and interaction. There's an innovation space that also focuses on leadership, innovation, and imagination, helping people to think about what has not yet been dreamed or articulated. And those individuals will have workspaces so they can come and work remotely, but also plug into leadership training, innovation training, find funding for their startup, and be connected with mentors, as well as plugged into my social network so that the businesses that really rise to the occasion are introduced to other businesses in the community so that they can do work with them. We have the studio that we're in, but we also have public spaces so that if you ever wanted to do a live episode of your podcast, or if I wanted to do that for my podcast, we could actually do some of those things that other podcasters do where they have space where you can come and sit in a live audience while they record like we did a couple of years ago, but we can actually do that here.
It crossed my mind.
Definitely. It should.
Yeah.
And then we have beautiful landscaping on the grounds themselves. So there's a walking path behind the building, as well as a beautiful fire pit that's made with stones that are pulled out of the ground as we were building. And so we have places for people to sit in the front of the building, behind the building, inside the building, in the patio. I don't know how we're going to do last call and tell people it's time to go home. I'm still trying to figure what light switch do you flick to make the outside people go home.
That might be it.
Yes.
You
don't have to go home.
But you can't stay here.
You can't stay here. And so those are the space that people will see. But the colors, the aesthetic, the angles, the shapes give sort of what I call a Black, feng shui feel. And before you know what it is, you feel that it's something. And that was the design. That was designed with a purpose from Rafiq, that people would come in and feel what it's like to exude a sense of Black culture without even noticing the colors or what that space does.
You could say the building has soul.
Oh my gosh, that's the
That's it.
The building has, let's write that down. I love that. And I'll credit you for it.
I didn't want to interrupt you when you were laying out everything because there's so much here, and the amount of hangout spaces. As I
Yes.
walk through, I'm like, I want to chill here. There's a fireplace. There's a deck, and going outside, the outside spaces were awesome. As we were
Yes.
walking through the business spaces, I'm like, I want my idea to be developed here. Like every single space
Yes.
spoke to all kinds of well-considered
Yes.
construction.
Yes.
And like you said, being certain rooms are, in tandem with others really intentionally for intergenerational community to happen. And I remember the women's health room is so groovy. It's
Yes, it
purple.
is.
It's got leopards and gold. And I was like, I will need someone to flick the lights to get me out of here.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Lolita fought to get that space and those colors, not the space, but the colors. The interior designers were saying, well, we don't know about if we can really find leopard, rugs. Come on. We put people on the moon. Yeah, we can find that. She said, but let me tell you, when a black woman walks in that room and sees leopard print, she's going to know that she was thought of when that was designed. And so when you name that and people name that, that's what she actually fought for. So even when we have this, I think the backstory is still, again, it was our project. So no one was slapping our wrist saying you can't do this. But the people that were the experts in color and design were saying, well, Now we all worked through this, and those same folks like walk through here and bringing teams of people to see it. So we all know we landed right. But I'm just saying, even having people walk through this, they did not know how my sister, who's our co-founder, Lolita, as a black woman, had to fight for the leopard print, for the purple, for the pink, for the lions, for the orange, red, yellow chairs. And so even when we were trying to bring our best cultural foot forward, it was helpful to have Lolita and Rafiq in the room, because there are others who certainly had more building experience, but they had never built cultural space like this. And they realized they are the experts in design, but we are the experts in color. And they have to redo and rethink everything. And so what you see is the result of a lot of pushback and a lot of teeth grinding and a lot of very terse, intense conversations. And we kept pushing it. But I understand why more cultural space doesn't exist, because you have to be able to hold your ground to get what you know exudes the best of your culture.
And the standards. I just want to thank Lolita for holding her ground, because I will tell you, the way my sister has a huge artwork of a leopard behind her whenever she's doing a recording, like it's in her living room. The way I'm looking for more leopard in my space, like it really did speak to the fact that like people might like bust out pink oil for our hair. Like this felt like real, like it felt like groovy, and the family vibes were in there. People were getting, there was also a wellness person like giving massage.
Chair massages, weren't they?
Yeah. And these spaces to be who you are.
Yes.
And fully. I'm just so happy. This is such a fun opportunity to hear about like how everything came together. And I imagine folks listening are probably wondering, like, are the doors just open to the center? Can folks just walk in, or do they need to be invited? The sort of events that are coming on, like what's the protocol?
We took a few weeks between grand opening and July 1st to onboard new staff, to make sure that everybody's, new and comfortable, because we had to get our food and beverage person around, our front desk person, to get some of those other key pieces in place. For most cultural spaces, you can't just walk through it. And because people are so used to community centers in our communities and not cultural spaces, I think people do want to just come in and just sort of wander through the space. And because we'll have children in here and older folks and just a lot of other vulnerable populations, we're wanting to really manage who can walk through. However, after July 1, we will have walking tours every Wednesday from 9 to 11 a.m., from 4 to 6, because there are people now who are listening and they're saying, well, shoot, I want to get in there. So on those days, we'll let people walk through. Now, when we have weddings like we do this coming weekend, and plays, and we're going to have a Black Film Festival. Black filmmaker from Minneapolis who went to UW-Madison, he just created an Oscar-vetted film. And so he's going to be doing that in October. We want the communities to come in. But because there's so much work that we got to do behind the scenes, the doors won't just be open so people can just walk through, because we won't have the staff to manage did that person leave also. And in this crazy world and reality, and this space is committed to what it is, I'm wanting to be protective of my team, because there's such a focus on Black art and Black culture. But there will be enough community things that people will get a chance to get in and to look around. But for folks who are coming for programming, paint and sips, or who are coming to some of the business classes or some of the jazz concerts. People have plenty of time to come through. To get back to your original question, it won't just be open every day so people can just sort of mill through just because of safety protocol.
I'm glad you laid that out. And I think because of how you shared about the space and the intentionality, I'm not surprised at all. There's going to be an intentionality with how the space is treated and how folks are coming in and really making the most of it. So
Right.
that makes perfect sense to
Definitely.
me. And I'm glad that we laid it out
Sure.
there. I want to talk about the big picture here with South Park Street. Like, there really has been a push recently to have communities of color have spaces that are resourced, that are dedicated to their well-being. And, you know, now we've seen the newer Black Business Hub over
Yes,
on South
yes.
Park. Centro Hispano's new facility, Cali, opened in 2024. So there's this growing energy and momentum in doing this work. What is the significance of having this physical gathering space here?
Sure. You know, having property and then development on that property is a twofold blessing. So just holding property is tremendous. You know, that's just part of the American dream. You have land, you have property, because then you can have value and you can make it even more valuable. I feel that it's making a clear statement to the broader community that we're here. South Madison, and because I grew up in South Madison, so I've lived, worked, or owned property in South Madison for the last 56 years. This area was always seen as sort of the armpit of the community. So it's not where people wanted to go, where people wanted to build. And I will just say, because Madison College gets a lot of credit for sort of starting that ball rolling, Fountain of Life, the church I pastor, actually bought property here and came to this side of town in '87. So we came and acquired property to be the first part of developing what we call the South Gate into South Madison. But to your point, I feel that by having Centro here and the hub and the center, we're making a statement against gentrification. When you start bringing in investments like Madison College and some of the other development, the idea is let's invest in South Madison. But then what happens is there are folks from the broader community who are saying, oh, South Madison's a good and safe place to live. And so you start seeing the property values go up. You start seeing homes go for what they didn't go for when I was a kid and a paper boy in this neighborhood. So what I'm seeing is that the people that made South Madison are being pushed out because they can't afford to live in South Madison. So we're trying to make a statement here that it's not just enough to have organizations that are led by people of color, but we want to signal that we want people of color to live and thrive in this neighborhood as well. So our organizations being here is reminding the broader community, don't get that gentrification happy feel going, because we are putting cultural stakes in the ground, and we are not going to honor a people and a culture who are not allowed to live in this community. Mm-hmm. We're telling them and reminding the broader community who made South Madison great. So that's a part of my excitement about being a part of what we're all doing together.
And it's so important to anchor that this building and all of the work that's been talked about for the past few years, this started decades ago.
Yes.
The work
Yes.
and the vision and this. And I think that I'm so glad you're anchored in that. And also, I want to ask, like, what can the community do to help support gentrification not coming to this area at a fast pace? Because it sounds like you're ringing the alarm.
Sure. I feel that one thing is that they can become aware that that's the case. And then find ways to support the Black Hub, Centro, and the center. I think that's a huge thing to do. And for those who live in the district, when it's election time, come to forums, ask questions. So what are you doing about gentrification? And are communities of color able to live in that neighborhood? Because when I was a kid, those communities could afford to live here. So I'm old enough that I remember when there was a large Southeast Asian population that moved to the United States and moved into South Madison. So I went to Lincoln when I was in middle school. So like a quarter of the kids were white, a quarter of the kids were Cambodian or Vietnamese, a quarter of the kids were Black and interracial. And then we saw the beginning of a growing of a Latino population. But this was that melting pot. You did not see that in other places. This zip code, 53713, is still one of the most diverse zip codes in the entire state of Wisconsin. And so we don't want to lose that edge. Of course, we want business. We want other groups coming in here. We just don't want the property values to go up, that the grandmas and the people that made South Madison great can't afford to be here. And I would also say that in addition to wanting to make sure that South Madison is real strong, we're communicating a vision to the broader state that the center is really about promoting Black first and Black culture around the entire state. And that's hard for people to really think about. I mean, if you're part of Lambeau Field, you know that that's not just for Green Bay. There's not enough people in Green Bay to really handle Lambeau and all the businesses around it. So they're hoping Madison, Milwaukee, others will drive there. Same thing with the Bucks. You know, people drive, I will drive to a game to see the Brewers. People don't tend to think about that for Madison, particularly when it comes to Black culture, even though we have the capital and other reasons for coming here. So we're trying to give Milwaukee and some of the other communities where there are large Black populations a reason to rethink Madison. And because when you start thinking about where culture and business and hipness should come, people think about Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is Milwaukee. It's done great for the state. But in Madison, we're known nationally for the disparities between Blacks and whites. And so we had to come big. Like we couldn't just, let's just say, let's have a big Kwanzaa party, or let's just have a good Juneteenth dinner. We knew that we had to do something that signaled to the rest of the state, we're going to tell our stories here through plays, through the gallery, through activities, through podcasts, through lectures, and rethink Madison. It was nothing for me as a Madisonian to go to Milwaukee to have soul food. Mm-hmm. My mom would put us in a station wagon. We'd drive to Milwaukee. We'd have a Black cultural experience with some soul food. Well, it's exactly the same distance from the center to the best soul food restaurant in Milwaukee as it is from that best soul food to the center. So we're trying to get the rest of the state to come and celebrate and not let this be written off as just a place that tells the Black experience in Madison or Dane County. This is really about the Black experience in Wisconsin.
I'm excited about the potentiality of connecting, what the center can do to connect us to Black folks across the state. Because I think, as you talked about at the beginning of this conversation, is we lose a lot of Black people in Madison. Like you said, people are moving south because Black people don't feel like they belong here. And part of that is because they're not seeing resources and opportunities to live a happy life without being characterized as folks who are excited about the Burger King because that's what's over here, right?
Right. My goal is to change the thoughts about the corridor that connects Madison to Milwaukee and Madison to, say, La Crosse. Because a lot of us just don't know that each other is out here doing these great things. But then it also means we have the potential of political power, because if we're now talking and sharing and connecting and texting, and that means we can say, okay, so which candidate is going to really help to support the academic support of Black kids in elementary school or after school programming or women-owned businesses, then we can begin to become powerhouse. People listen to us when we become a political base or a base that supports political things. And so I'm thinking the big picture. So while people are just wondering, well, why do you need your own space? Like, why don't you just come to the Overture Center? And the Overture Center has great stuff, but if it's outside February, you're not going to talk a whole lot about Black programming. But we're not just trying to have a place so that we can see Black people act. No, we're thinking down the line. We're thinking, how do we support political candidates? How do we make this a place that, that Black candidates come to Wisconsin when they're seeking national position? So I'm looking at more than just our cultural celebrations, but how do we get things done for our community? And I believe that it starts with relationships and networks.
100%. I think there's nothing scarier than a connected community. Because there's a lot of disconnection.
You're so right.
Yeah.
And can I just throw out something else? We made sure that we brought members of the diaspora here before it was finished, so that we didn't build out this place and outfit it and everything and say, hey, Pan-African community, what do you think? No, they came when it was just steel and beams and they asked, where can our kids learn our communal dances? Where can we have cook-offs? Where can we help to connect folks that are new to America who are trying to get connected? And we began to talk about what can happen. I have a meeting scheduled today where we're creating a document that ties these Pan-African communities together. I've hosted one of the mayors from Gambia here, and we're having this plan of how do we take Black Americans, specifically Black Wisconsinites, to West Africa to think about dual citizenship, investment in businesses, they're saying one of the greatest ways for Black Americans to gain wealth is to invest in Africa. I didn't know I was getting into all of that. Like when we started talking about cultural space,
It's that deep.
We didn't know we were going to connect it to the motherland. But
yeah.
Yes.
Well, what I'm obsessed with is the fact that this center is about going deep and also thinking big.
Yes.
And thinking about those big sorts of connections and helping to be a balm and a fix for a lot of pain and damage that's happened that has come from the hands of our government and community members. So this is just such a testament in what is possible when you stick to it. And I know that you and your family has put so much work for so long to be at where we are at this moment. I do want to ask, was there ever a moment in this process where you thought, it's taking so many donations, so many investments, this is such hard work, maybe we shouldn't even finish? Like a moment of hardship or hurdles that was like, you know what? Several
of those moments.
Yeah.
When the pandemic hit, all of our planning stopped. Everyone, including myself, started focusing on the life of our existing organizations. Found a Life Church and the Nehemiah Community Development Corporation, or the Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. All of my energy went to the maintenance and survival of these organizations that I've been leading for decades. I felt like everything else is an idea, but how they just closed down March Madness. They're pulling people into Central Park in New York on hospital beds and stretchers. It felt like the end of the world. And so it went away. In my heart, it took a friend to really bring it back on track. I would say after the whole January 6th incident, and I saw what people were willing to do to erase history and to annihilate change, and it really put the sentiment towards Black advancement and advancement of people of color. That was very appalling. It was very eye-opening. I just felt like this is a world I'm not familiar with. That was very frightening. I would say, and not to be political, but I would say when Trump was reelected, we were communicating with the federal government because 10% of our funding came from the federal government. And we started getting error signs as we communicated with the government the day after inauguration. I thought, if we don't get that $3.5 million grant, we can't finish this deal because this center cannot handle that kind of debt load. So yeah, those are just a few times that I just thought, what was I thinking? What were we thinking? What did I miss? How did we get here and not realize this? Those were at least three of the scary points.
I'm glad that we made it past those and that we're here today recording this podcast together at the center. And something has been heavy on my mind this week. We lost a Black leader in Madison, Michael Johnson, longtime CEO and president of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County. And he was recently on our show and talking about being a Black leader in Madison and shared just a series of harassment that he experienced, and that was totally outside of his work. And knowing, you and I both know the stresses of carrying things that have nothing to do with your mission and your job because of just unfair treatment, being undervalued, thinking that your expertise isn't where it's at, so you have to do extra work. It's been very heavy thinking about losing someone who was 50 years old. And that is very heavy for a lot of reasons, knowing that African Americans, Black folks, we don't have the same life expectancy as our neighbors.
Not at all.
I've lost my own father at an early age. And it's bringing up a lot. And I know that you're a spiritual leader, and you're also a leader in every way, a civic leader in Madison. And I just felt like being here in a Center for Black Excellence, Michael Johnson brought in millions of dollars, did a lot of work to support the community. And I feel like it's hard not to reckon with what the community could have been for so many people and what it could now be with a center that does have focus on health and community and support and shared community around our experiences.
I have to say, just a week ago, I was with Michael at a small gathering of community influencers. Michael, Kaleem, Karen, and I were together. And so to be together for 25 people on a Wednesday evening and then get this news Monday morning, it just makes you think the added pressure of being trailblazing, of being excellent, but also being Black and influential. And that in a place like Madison and often a place like the United States, it adds a whole different level of pressures. And we just know through public centers of health, racial battle fatigue and part of the pressure of being the first and the only and trailblazing becomes a feeding ground for degenerative diseases like hypertension or diabetes. And so my mind's I've been in a quandary myself the last several days, just thinking, what does this mean, or how much longer do I have? And you can do all of these things for the community, and then your intelligence is still questioned. Your expertise is still questioned. The assumption is, if you have an advanced degree, and I do, you got it off the box of a cereal, and this isn't everyone, but it's enough people to ask. They think that we got to get rid of DEI because the only way that some of us have gotten what we've gotten is through handouts. And if we've gotten it through handouts, that means that we're really not experts. And so we have these titles and credentials, but we don't really have expertise. And so to add that on top of things does add a bit of a pressure. I run a nonprofit. The center's a nonprofit. And one of the risks is I can raise $32 million in a debt-free facility and still be called a community leader. You don't do that in the broader community, and you're a white male banker, a leader, and you're called a community leader. You're called a phenom. You're called, you're called a senior vice president. You're called the newest partner. That's what you're called. And so, but having said all of that, I still don't think that I could have built the center anyplace else. There's something about what's happening in Madison right now, South Central Wisconsin, that allowed me to do this. But in tying it back to your original question, Michael, it's not without being fraught with the other pressures of other things that's going on. Like, while I'm building this, well, what about the Latino community? What about the Hmong community? Like, I was asked those specific questions, but no one goes to a white developer and says, hey, what are you doing for the Black community? No one goes to the Hmong community and say, hey, how about the Black people up the street? But while I'm building, I'm explaining why I'm not doing this. Like, as a Black man, I could or should build the Center for Laotian Excellence, among excellence. Like, to even position that question to me in a business setting is asinine. But if I answer it too flippantly, I'm uppity. But then if I have to eat too much crow in order to answer it civilly, then I go home and then I feel indigestion. But I still love what we're doing. I think this is a testament to Black excellence that can do all of this in the midst of all of that. I think that's the uniqueness of this, and that's the story that we want to tell, that we can't not shoot for greatness because some of us lose our lives while trying to create greatness for others. In order to honor a legacy of someone like Michael Johnson, we have to keep pursuing excellence against all odds.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the experiences that you've had as a leader, just building this, and just the amount of additional work and processing you have to do, and also communicating when you get an asinine request like that, to try and communicate and,
Yes.
and just so you don't get another.
Right.
Because you have to protect your time because you're doing important work. And I know that was heavy, but I know it's on a lot of folks' minds.
Yes,
and I know,
appreciate it.
like, it's a small community. We're all close. And
Yes.
thank you for talking on it. And I think the center means so much in so many ways. And this has been an excellent conversation that captures, even just walking in, everything has been well considered. And this is just such an important asset to Madison. So thank you for literally everything that you've done in your heart and spirit, and that you're breathing life back into the rest of us.
It's my pleasure. It's really an honor to give back to a community that's given so much to my family, and I mean that sincerely. So thank you for mentioning that, and it's my pleasure. And thank you for bringing your team here to record. And I'm looking forward to the day where you have a live event with the guests here inside the center. I would love to find a way to make that happen and to host that. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Received. Would love that. That's Reverend Dr. Alex G., founder of the Center for Black Excellence and Culture. He is also the pastor of Fountain of Life Church, the founder of Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development, and the host of the Black Like Me podcast. If you have not heard enough from him, which I assure you have not, go listen to that. Also want to shout out his whole team and everyone that helped us record this episode in person: Eli Steenledge, Ariana Proctor, and Brianna Billingsley. today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Madison. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with everyone you know? Help spread the word about CityCast Madison and the center and the amazing works. What a conversation. All right, y'all, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care and take care of each other.